Boris looks best black and white. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Frankenstein Ultimate Frankenstein's Monster. To celebrate the 90th anniversary of the acclaimed silver screen classic Frankenstein, NECA announces the triumphant debut of the Universal Monsters in its Ultimate action figure line. The sculpt captures Boris Karloff's poignant portrayal of the misunderstood monster in authentic black and white. Standing in 7-inch scale, the figure comes with premium anniversary packaging with plenty of accessories, 3 interchangeable heads, 6 interchangeable hands, shackles, and daisies. Now, before we get a closer look at Karloff with a little less color, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the Ultimate Frankenstein's monster stands. By, of course, taking this tape measure of mine that I'm now bringing into the camera, I'm going to move it across from his head out so I don't clip anything along the ways. And we're going to stop it right around there. According to the readouts, you're looking at the black and white version of Ultimate Frankenstein's monster standing 9 inches or 9.074 inches in height. Switching that over to centimeters, you're looking at the figure standing 23 centimeters exactly. Of course, this is the black and white version of Frankenstein's monster, but the very same figure that we've already had a look at. So we can move this one over, and we'll bring in the colorized version of him so you can see the difference between the two. Despite the fact, really, that the bodies and heads and all the accessories are going to be the same, at least it gives you then the opportunity to decide for yourself which Frankenstein you'd like to have for your collection. Personally, I'd like to have both in my collection, but I think some people may just gravitate towards the idea of getting him black and white, as, of course, that's the way he appeared in the film in the first place. BTW, the BW version of Frankenstein's monster, was provided by the folks over at NECA Toys. So again, big thank you for NECA for sending this sample my way. For his accessories, the accessories are going to be the same as the colorized version, just stripped away on color. Starting first, the smallest of them, he comes included with daisies. 2 that are already attached together and then 1 that's by itself. Just to show you the difference between the two. And we'll do this with all the accessories he comes packed with. The colorized version, of course, came with colored daisies. So the middle area in yellow now stripped away and done and presented in gray here. And even like the stems are also in gray. Like with the other release, he also comes included with a couple of hands for holding those daisies. He comes with a couple of gestured hands. This one you can either use for the single daisy or you can try your best. Get both the daisies in there, but it works the same way. Basically, just going to grab the daisy. Pry your finger, not your finger, his thumb away from the palm and kind of just get a gap formed in between the two. It's not something that's easily done. Although, funny enough, when I did the colorized version of Frankenstein, I was able to do this the first time. I was surprised even in the fact I was able to get it the first time. But yeah, you just take the daisy and you're supposed to be able to fit it in between his thumb and his pointer finger. Yet somehow I'm having less of a success getting it this time around. It does also come included with like this hand right here. And with this, you can then take the double daisies, and you can fit that in between his thumb and his pointer finger. Fared a little bit better that time, I have to admit it. So he comes with those. Again, nothing different really than the previously looked at Frankenstein. Then, of course, he comes with a couple of other hands. Let's have a look at those right now. These are fun gestured hands. And just to show you the difference between the two, let's see if we can get like for like going on here. Where's the like for like? Where's the like for like? Is it this hand right here? Yeah, it is this hand right here. You can see the difference between the color version of Frankenstein's hand and then the regular, that's not the right hand, but the black and white version, you can see has all the color away, gone instead with a nice gray. Didn't realize I was going to rhyme there. The fingernails are also painted in a more darker gray, whereas these fingernails actually come across, now that I'm looking at the two, more of a very dark swamp green. Like I said, he comes with a couple of different gestured hands. Currently, though, in the sockets of his forearms, he comes with just relaxed hands. Now, of course, you can easily just remove those off, and probably we will be doing that to look at the next accessory. He does come with the same shackles. Put the figure down here for 1 second. Where did I put the shackles for the colored version? Here is the colorized version of Frankenstein. The shackles are a little bit more of a brownish tint on the colored version than there is on the black and white. The black and white comes across more just like a straight medium gray. These don't open up, nor did the other ones. So in order to get them onto Frankenstein's forearms, all you have to do is just take the forearm, wiggle the hands off very carefully. If there is resistance or it doesn't feel like the hands are going to be removed easily from the pegs or the peg holes, just take a hairdryer. You can either run a hairdryer a few passes across that, or you can also submerge it in hot water just to help soften that up a little bit. We'll go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. I know it's deja vu that we're pretty much doing this same thing, but it's so I can certainly show you guys how the shackles go into place. Those just fit over top of his forearms, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And then from there, we can go ahead and just replace the hands, so that will prevent the shackles from falling off. Do that on the one side, do it then on the other side. And there you go, nice satisfying snap. So there you have Frankenstein with shackles now on his forearms. The beauty of the fact that we are now looking at a second Frankenstein with pretty much the same accessories, just with a different color palette. I mean, really, you can then display one Frankenstein one way and the other Frankenstein a different way. I might actually even just decide for myself to display the black and white version, despite having some difficulty getting the daisies into his hand. I might actually display this one with the daisies. Let's go ahead and actually remove the hands once again. All the effort to actually put them in place in the first place, but let's remove those so we can move on with the rest of this figure. Pop that one hand in place, do the exact same thing on the other side. It's also to reiterate, too, how easy it is to remove these hands. I haven't had any difficulty with either Frankies when it comes to removing or replacing the hands, nor really could be said for the head either. And we'll start first with the stock head sculpt. And again, we'll bring in the colorized version so you can see the same head sculpt. And yet, you know, looking at the black and white version of Frankenstein, I actually feel like the features on his face look a lot sharper. Being as well that it's based on the original silver screen adaptation of Frankenstein. I mean, really, this would be my preferred method of going with Frankenstein when it comes to certainly displaying him. I love the idea that they've given him a black and white treatment. I hope as well, when it comes to all the other Universal monsters that we're going to be getting from NECA Toys, that they are going to be approaching the figures with a colorized version and a black and white version. I'll definitely be picking up both of them. So again, like these are the stock head sculpts. We'll put this one to the side because we, again, have already looked at those. And then he comes with a couple of other swappable heads. He comes with this one, which is not different. Let's put this one down here for a second so you guys can see. Get him, hopefully, to stand properly. And let's grab the other one here. Whenever I look at this head sculpt, it reminds me of Herman Munster, which is somewhat funny to say that because Herman Munster, of course, was a satire based on the original Frankenstein's monster. You can see that this one is a more jovial looking Frankie. And yet again, I draw hopefully everyone's attention to the idea that somehow with going the route of black and white, I find the features are a little bit more, they stand out and seem sharper when you compare it to the colorized version that we looked at earlier. The other head sculpt available is this one right here. And grabbing the like for like or colored version to black and white, you can see then the difference between the two. I just feel, though, like the darker shadowing, especially around his eyes seem to stand out a lot nicer than the colorized version. See it from the side, and certainly as well see it from the back. To change out any one of the head sculpts, I know we've already covered off this territory before, but go ahead and just grab the torso, wiggle the head off the ball peg, like that, and then we'll just go ahead and replace it with the head that we want to go with. Something I'm sure I'll talk about again when we look at the articulation on the figure, but just be careful of the bolts that are located on the sides of his neck. Because when it comes to the articulation on the figure, when you're rotating this back and forth, the back of his hair is going to hit those bolts. I know, we've already talked about that in the other review of Frankenstein, but it still holds true. It's very close quarters, and if you're not careful, you swipe that across and move the head too quickly, you could cause damage or even just remove those bolts altogether. I'm going to stick with this head sculpt for the time being, as we certainly look at the rest of the figure. Now, again, all the colors are really gone on this one, bringing back the original colorized version so you can see. While I wouldn't necessarily say the jacket or undershirt were a different color, or any additional color brought to it, it was a lot darker of a jacket. If any bit of critique I could offer up for the black and white release, I find while the head and the hands and I guess really for that matter, well, the boots probably could be something I would change as well. I do find like the jacket and the pants, and yes, maybe then the boots, to be a bit on the lighter side. Now, it is supposed to be a black and white silver screen version of Frankenstein. Successfully, I feel they have done that. But perhaps the jacket and the pants, I feel, are too light of a gray. They almost even could have just given us the exact same jacket color and pants color that we got with the colorized version, and just simply just changed the neck, changed the head, and changed the hands, and I would have been fine for that. I guess they did want to have a very different looking Frankenstein, so that it's not just those heads, the hands, and the, well, I guess those are really the only things that are going to be changing on the figure. I guess they did want to make it so that the bodies themselves do look different. But I probably would have still kept to this color scheme, because I feel like his jacket is a little too dark. Not as dark as I would have made like the undershirt, but I would have maybe made it the shade of this gray just one shade darker. Other than that, though, I mean, everything else about the figure is just as good as what I liked with the original. But, you know, there's, again, something to be said about the black and white version of this guy. I find just works a little bit better. The sculpt seems so much nicer. His jacket works the same way. It's attached in the middle area there, so you really don't want to open this up. But underneath that would be his undershirt. He does have the boxed off top shoulder areas of his jacket. Very squared off looking character that goes all the way down to his very boxy, stilted shoes. Which again, the stilted shoes are the same ones that we got before, just a little bit lighter of a shade of color than the colorized version. The wrinkles on his pants are just the same as the ones before. Nice dry brushing of a gray over top of it, so again you see those wrinkles standing out on the molding of the figure. Frankenstein has a bit of a flat behind. I want to draw too much attention to the fact that Frankie's got a flat behind, but he does. And like I said, the jacket is a softer plastic, so when it comes to the articulation on the figure, he's not hindered or limited at all. One last time, looking certainly at the details on the head sculpt. Short of me actually talking about the head for like the next 5-10 minutes, I probably could too as well. Again, nice looking details though on the figure. The staple there, again, prevalent on the top, and again, he's got the little scar there on the side. I at least appreciate the fact that they give us different head sculpts. So especially now that we have 2 Frankensteins released, and I'm hoping even a possible 3 with the lab table. You know, again, you can mix and match these. Maybe have the colorized version Frankenstein with a more neutral head sculpt, or even maybe go with the black and white, going with the neutral head sculpt, and get the colorized version with one of the expression faces that we're looking at right now. Either way, though, you have a couple of available options at your disposal. For the articulation on black and white Frankenstein, something I had already talked about earlier, but I'll mention it again, just be careful of the head. The head is on a ball joint, and you get a good range of motion up, down, and you can also rock it back and forth. But while we're doing that, just be careful that you don't do it like this and twist it too far, just in case you break those pegs right off. It does also have a secondary ball joint at the base of the neck, which I couldn't help but notice was a little more flexible, a little bit more forgiving than the colored version we looked at earlier. In addition to that, he has an upper torso ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. His arms, though looking like, again, swivels, you can get a full hinge out at about a 90-degree angle bend. You can rotate as well, the arms all the way around. Let's put that arm down. It looks a little silly for it to be sticking out like that. Rotates all the way around. He has a swivel at the forearm, where also it bends at the elbow. And then for his hands, you can also rotate those all the way around. And there's a hinge also happening there as well. The legs, similar to the other one, do split out. There is a swivel, which I don't know if I actually mentioned that when we looked at the colored version, but there's a swivel basically at the top of the thigh where it attaches to the ball joint. Swivel happening there. He has a single hinge on the knee. The lower leg rotates back and forth. And then he does have the articulation in the feet. Not as much up and down, but he does have quite a bit for an ankle pivot. So it's nice, very posable Frankenstein that you can put on display. One other thing too, he does have the peg holes on the undersides of his feet. So if you do want to make use of a NECA display stand to stand these figures, you certainly can. But I mean, so easy it is to put these guys on display. Being the fact that they're such straight figures, you're probably not going to be putting him in any action poses. But also the fact he's got big blocky feet too also aid to help both the figures stand upright quite easily, actually. And then when we're looking at a figure like this, when we have both a colorized version and now a black and white version we can put side to side, It's then entirely up to you which one you would want to go with. Some people would prefer the colorized version of Frankenstein because generally when it comes to merchandising, posters, t-shirts, you usually get a colorized version of Frankenstein. But if you want to be more the purist, stick back with the more classic silver screen look of this somewhat misunderstood monster, I think the black and white, honestly, is the better of the two. The features seem a little bit more stand-outish. The only other thing I would probably have done differently to the black and white version is maybe darkened the jacket, the pants, closer to what we're getting right here with the original colorized version that we looked at. Personally, I can get behind a company if they want to re-release a figure with a different color variant. If it's justified, at least. And it has to be specific to the character. You just can't throw out different colored versions of the same figure. After a while, people are like, you're just sort of double dipping, triple dipping, quadruple dipping. No. It has to be justified. So if you want to release a bloodied version of, say, an Ash Williams, then yes, that's something I could get behind. Ash would be bloodied. You can't just put blood on every single figure, but when it comes to the ultimate universal monsters, and so far the only one we were looking at right now is the Frankenstein's monster, I think no better of a justified reason why NECA Toys would want to release a colored version of it and then a black and white version, because there are two different ways that Frankenstein has been presented. I mean, when you see the actual movie, he's in black and white. But when you see merchandise, when you see him on t-shirts, posters, and stickers, Frankenstein's monster tends to be then color. They don't tend to use the black and white because the color pops a little bit more. So for that reason and that reason alone, I think it's justified why NECA Toys would want to release two versions of essentially the same figures and the same accessories and the same swappable heads. I just hope, though, that this is something of a broad brushstroke that they're going to do across all of the Universal monsters. I mean, right now we've been teased the werewolf. We already see what Wolfman looks like. We have Dracula, I think, teased and Mummy teased. Let's just hope that they're going to follow suit Frankenstein's boxy squared suit. They're going to do the exact same thing with all the other Universal monsters. Give us a colorized version and then also give us a black and white variant of it, because then either you can pick up one or the other, depending on how you remember that character, or like myself, you're probably going to be picking up both of them and your shelf space is going to be filling up quite fast. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of the BW, that's black and white, by the way, in case you were wondering, of the ultimate Frankenstein's monster. Have you picked up the black and white version, or have you picked up the color version, or what plan do you have in your not so distant future? Which version of Frankenstein's monster do you plan on picking up? Let me know down below in the comments section. If you guys are also new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and making sure, yes, you're coming back to this channel. While we have wrapped up things on Universal Monsters for the time being, rest assured there will be more NECA reviews lined up and coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.